All right, everybody. So I ran out of time in that first one, and the second part is pretty short. So let's talk about how parent involvement. The first part of the video or the lecture really talked about how important parent involvement is to a child's literacy development. If we're building a foundation for literacy, which we are in this class, we can't ignore the power of parents. But how, as a teacher, can you support this? So just a couple quick slides on that. The first way is to think about two-way communication. So good two-way communication between families and schools is necessary. Two ways, meaning you're not just sharing with them, they're sharing back with you. Not surprisingly, research shows that the more parents and teachers share relevant information with each other about a student, the better equipped both will be to help the student. So things like parent conferences, things like parent-teacher organizations, weekly or monthly folders of student work sent home, phone calls, emails. I love teachers who have their own websites because then the parents can get information that way. That said, that also presumes that the parents, have technology, which we're finding out during this pandemic that is not necessarily true, and B, has the linguistic ability to access this. For example, if you have parents who are non-native English speakers, then you need to think about how you're going to communicate with them. And there are a lot of resources. I know there's a phone service that you can call here in Portland that the teacher will call the phone service, and then the phone service calls the parent, and there's a translation in between there. That the middle person will translate what the teacher says into the language of the parent. So that's really important. But it's important that it's two-way communication, and that's not always easy. A lot of parents are intimidated by teachers or did not have positive school experiences. That doesn't mean they don't want the best for their child. So the fact that a parent might not communicate in the way that you're comfortable with does not mean that the parent is not interested in the child. When I worked down in inner city Cincinnati, I had this one teacher. She was like the most amazing teacher I worked with, and she would do whatever it took to communicate with those parents. Sometimes she would go to the laundromat and talk to them there. She would go to the bar, sit at the bar, talk to them there. She would go to their porch and just hang with them and talk to them. She did whatever it took to meet those parents on their turf, because she knew that family involvement and family engagement, two separate things. Family involvement doesn't mean they're necessarily involved, or engagement doesn't mean they're necessarily involved in the school, but they need to be involved in their child's education. So again, some other strategies: parent newsletters, annual open houses. Again, in this very poor school that I worked in Cincinnati, they actually did a couple times a year, they would have big meals where actually local businesses would donate meals. The whole family would come and teachers would be there. That was a way that they could connect. Curriculum nights, home visits, I just talked about that, phone calls or emails, annual school calendars, inserts in newspapers, annual grandparents or special persons day. People like to be recognized. So Grandparents' Day is, every school I've ever worked at has always a big success. Speakers. I've been involved in some wonderful literacy literacy events for family literacy to help parents learn how to read to their children, what to do, how to support their children. Homework hotlines, notices, handouts, websites, workshop for parents. Jeffrey Canada talks about in Harlem, Baby College, he calls it, and where they educate future parents as well. Not just how do you take care of your baby, but how do you take care of your baby's brain? And that's really important. It's also really important that we're talking about not just mothers, but fathers, grandparents, caregivers as well. So some effective strategies, and I think this is my last slide, is initiation. It's your job as a teacher to initiate contact as soon as you know that the child's going to be in your classroom. Contact can be a phone call, a letter, introducing yourself, but just that initial That initiation step is so, so important. It opens the door. Think about it as literally opening the door to parent involvement. Timeliness, not just when a problem's been identified, but also because waiting too long is going to cause problems, but also think about a timeline. How are you going to communicate regularly even when there isn't a problem? And that's consistency and frequency. Parents want frequent ongoing feedback about how their child is performing and how they can help. Follow through. If you tell a parent you're going to do something, you do it. And you can't expect them to follow through if you're not going to follow through. And finally, clarity and usefulness of communication. Give them things that they need, things that they want.